You're listening to a Meatsmith Harvest. This is the podcast that encourages and equips you to grow your home around the harvest. Welcome, Meatsmiths. This dialogue picks up where we left off in our last episode's conversation. You can find part 1 on our website, YouTube, or iTunes. If the content resonates with you, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating a small monthly pledge. This goes directly toward more free media headed your way. Thanks for staying tuned for part 2. The last few things I wanted to talk about were just sort of hodgepodge topics. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about our geese project in more full?
Yeah, we have gooses. We have 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're huge. They're Toulouse. Mm-hmm. And I am following the method I mentioned before, which is, and it just sounds obvious, but it's frequently not done, I find. Supply them with all the nutrients that they need, always, all the time, never not. And it really helps. They just get huge quick, and provide them with forage. And sometimes it's easy to slip into geese can graze, right, for everything. And yes, but grazing is also kind of a science. And so it's not enough just to turn them out on a grassy area. They need nutrient-dense grass, and it needs to be, fresh. It needs to be good forage in terms of, old winter grass that's laying on the ground is not the same as spring grass, which is just crazy high in protein. So it has been neat to watch them. It's kind of this very basic system I apply to all of our domestic poultry is very high protein ration, and then a very rich organic carb ration of the scratch, and then grit. And for meat birds, that just is awesome. It works every time. They always get healthy, and it permits some flexibility in the system, because I'm not always able to get out there to move their paddocks exactly how I want perfectly. I'm still fumbling around with the polywire netting, the electrified netting, and I am at that stage in my life where I hate that stuff with a very deep passion. It's ugly, there's that, but also it's not as efficient as a permanent paddock or fence.
Or as it promises to be.
Yeah, at least on a small scale. I get it on a larger scale. I think it does make sense, because you can really tailor the size of your paddocks to that year and that herd, or that flock. And so all of that flexibility, I guess that's its primary benefit, is it is extremely flexible. But for the domestic scene, for our little 2.5 acres here, my paddocks are limited anyway, and I think I can achieve the same flexibility that is achieved with varying paddock size with polywire by, instead of that, having sacrifice zones. So what I plan to do is have a poultry fattening house that will have an indoor predator secure area, and then a run, which is a sacrifice area, but that is also substantially fenced, where their water and their feed are. And it's so large that it's a place wherein I can put them without feeling bad for them. And we've always talked about this, but that's the benevolent confinement. And then have several hard fenced paddocks. And for poultry, fortunately, it does, at least for palmapedes that don't fly.
That's what they're called?
Large breed, like webbed footed.
Yes.
They have palms for peds, for feet.
Oh,
Palm footed. I always raise the largest breeds of geese because, large is nice and it's meat, and of ducks as well. And when you do that, they don't fly. Muscovies are an exception. The females will fly all over the place. But, we're talking about other stuff. All that to say, it requires minimal fencing to retain them. Yeah. You can have short fencing, which is nice. It's easier to install. It's cheaper. You don't have to necessarily stretch woven wire fencing. for these guys. Anyway, the flexibility would be achieved when, if let's say the paddock sizes are not perfectly ideal in number and size for that particular year to maximize the forage, I can get them off of it and allow all the paddocks to rejuvenate in their benevolent confinement in the run and not feel bad for them. Which is something I do a lot with the ducks. That's how, for the laying ducks. So basically, raising these geese has solidified in my mind that that's how I want to do it, because we don't have that for them right now.
Yeah.
We have the calf igloo that they can use for shelter, which you can find on Craigslist. It's what large dairies put calves in annually, and they're just these horrible white polymer indestructible things that keep out rain real well, and that pigs don't destroy, which is also amazing because they're flexy. So the geese have that for shelter, and then they just have polywire that I move around occasionally. Right now they're cleaning up the garden.
Yeah.
So they're great. They are huge. They're
really
very tall. I'm interested to see how much meat are under those feathers. We've switched them to, in addition to their starter grower, they're getting corn.
Oh, okay.
Now, Wallace is giving them corn, and he just yelled at me today because we have conversations at 100-yard distances on our property all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how we roll. He's like, Dad, what? They ate all the corn. Okay. So it's great. I was a little worried that they might not be into it, but they totally wolfed down all the corn we put in their bowl in a couple days, which is awesome. So I think that they're fixing to fatten.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep giving them corn.
Yeah.
And harvest them on November the 10th, the day before Martinmas.
Okay.
So we can eat them on the Feast of St. Martin,
Okay.
November the 11th.
But we're not going to have all 8 of them.
No, we'll try not to eat all 8. Even though that'd be kind of fun. I think what I'm going to do is harvest them, and I'm going to just kill, and I'm editing a video on how to kill geese right now, so that'll come out soon. By pithing. I use the pithing method again, and bleeding out from the mouth.
Okay.
So I'll kill them all on the 10th and pluck them. So scald them, pluck, get all the feathers off, and then put them in the walk-in. And on the 11th, I will start to eviscerate them. That way, if there's any excess fat in their body cavity, if perchance any of their livers have acquired any more fat than the standard tiny goose liver, it will be solid. That fat will be solid, having spent the night in the fridge, as saturated fat is wont to do in cool temperatures. So if I were to eviscerate them the day of the kill, their body temperature keeps all that fat oily and keeps their livers very fragile. So, and easy to kind of destroy during evisceration. So they're going to spend the night in the walk-in without feathers, but with guts. And then we'll roast them. And there should be chestnuts at Thriftway.
Okay.
At the local grocery store here. So we're going to stuff the goose with chestnuts that I have very gently flambéed in whiskey, because it makes them super sweet and awesome. And then stuff it into the cavity. And then we will roast the goose for a long time on a grate.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, on the top grate with a pan below for the catching of the luxurious drippage of lipid gold that will be distilling from the duck.
Yeah.
So it's going to drip all the fat into the pan.
From the goose. Yeah.
Goose. Yeah. Roast goose.
At what temperature would you roast it, and for roughly how long?
I think I'm going to do like 325 for a couple hours, or 300 for a couple hours.
Okay.
You can kind of roast them for a while. Maybe 350 for 2 hours or something. I don't ever know until I look at the goose.
Yeah.
And then I think about it.
But like
and then I
medium
do
low.
it.
Medium low.
Yeah, medium heat. It's sort of like cooking a turkey. It's one of those weird things where if it's fresh, not previously frozen goose, you can cook it for quite a while, and you kind of want to, because they're several months old. What are they going to be, 5 months old or so? So they're going to be kind of tough.
Okay, yeah.
They're not spring chickens, you know, they're not 6-week-old tender things that you can just like gently touch with the heat and it's all just tender.
Yeah.
No, it needs a little more time in the heat to break down the collagen and the connective tissue so that the breasts and so that the legs and the thighs are actually chewable, tender. Now, if it's a fresh bird and is nice and fat, usually, and particularly even with geese, especially if you stuff it, it helps. I'll have that thermal mass in there. The breasts won't dry out. With the duck, that's actually harder. The breasts tend to dry a little too much by the time the legs are cooked. And so usually, unless it's a very young duck, we like to part out our ducks for cooking. Pan fry the breasts, or the magret, as they say in France. And then braise the legs, a quick little braise, even on a young duck, youngish.
That's going to be fun. So we'll slaughter them all November 10th, and then we'll start eating them. There'll be 8 of them. How are you going to space them? Like, will one last until Christmas without freezing it, like you do beef, or is it kind of like we need to eat it in the next 2 weeks? That might be
kind of fun. I might try that. I think what I would do is, depending on how much fat they have. Well, actually, no. We have a ton of lard too, so I would like to. We're going to do confit. Okay. So we will end up roasting as many as our heart desires because roast goose is so awesome. But then there will certainly be some remained, unless you just wanted to eat roast goose for 8 days in a row or 16, you know, which is a little much because anyway, you know, it's luxurious. The feast is only as good as the intermittent fasts in between. So that's right. Yeah. You don't want to gluttonize.
Well, we have been doing that lately.
Fasting?
Which we could talk about, but not quite yet.
Which makes the feast all that much better.
Yes.
So anyway, the leftover geese will be confit. If I still have breasts on the goose, I don't think I'm going to confit any of the breasts. Well, those are, even on an older goose, those are pan friable. So we'll treat those like steaks. I'm not going to do goose breast prosciutto or duck breast prosciutto on account of the fact that I have pig prosciutto coming out my ears. So we don't need to do that. But it will be pan frying the breasts. And then the wings, even the gizzards are nice confit. You can confit them. And the legs will get confit, and then the bodies will be for stock, you know, the rib cage and such, and the bones. The long necks will have long necks with uninterrupted featherless skin.
Because you pithed them.
Because I pithed them. Yeah. One of those details. And they're excellent for sausage. I'm not slaughtering a pig at that time, but I do have lots of back fat in the freezer, and I have lots of beef in the fridge. So we could stuff the goosenecks with a beef sausage. And then we could even smoke them. And that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
So you actually use the neck as a casing because it's this long, and you tie off the ends with twine. And you could poach that, and you could serve it at room temp. You know, it's a slicing. Cold, I think that's a galantine, or there's a couple different names for stuff like that.
You did that 2 Christmases ago.
Yeah, super good. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I would add about geese is when they are alive still, they are adding so much personality to our farm, to our homestead.
That is the very polite way to say it.
I guess I was going to try to say that I have been enjoying them.
Yeah. I like them too.
You know, as the housewife, I'm not apt to enjoy every element of creatureliness on this property. Or all of the waste that they leave behind, rather. But because you've been able to contain them, and I mean, they're loud.
Yeah, they're very loud.
but they're far enough away from the house that it's more like a rooster crowing. Like it's more quaint.
Yeah.
It's more. I mean, maybe we should ask my parents what they think about it, but I know what they think about our rooster.
Yeah.
But the geese are closer to our house, and the kids have had such a relationship with them since the beginning, which we have not done that well with other poultry because we didn't want them to die.
Right, we were protecting the poultry from the kids.
That's what I mean.
What
Yeah.
happens.
But the geese came so big already.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was coming off the heels of getting our bantam chickens, which were like, barely 3 inches.
Yeah, the most fragile little things you've ever seen for the longest time.
Yes.
They take forever to
but
grow.
Geese, I mean, they came and they almost looked like little teenagers already.
Yeah.
But they were
big
just.
and they grow faster than any bird.
So our kids were able to handle them from day one. And we weren't like, we were just sort of like, okay,
Right.
And they have kind of grown up with them and they loved them and they still love them. And it's like a ritual. Every time we come or go in our van, we all have to like wave goodbye to the geese because the geese are there to like see us off.
And to greet us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the gatekeepers of the property, for sure.
They are.
Yeah, they're very different. Yeah, just like you say, they actually have a ton of personality.
Yeah.
Of goosality. They interact with everyone all the time. That can safely be said of geese. They're always interacting with you. Unlike all other birds, they flee not.
That's right.
They come to you. They come up to you, which is why they can be intimidating. And they definitely imprinted on our kids and on me, on all of us, I guess.
Not me.
When they're not you, but when they were little, and they still, I think, they still recognize me in a way. But the boys have found their antics too irresistible to not tease them on a semi-regular basis. So
normally you're like, no, don't do that. But you haven't been with the geese as much.
At least with ducks. Like ducks will worry themselves into a tizzy. And this side, ducks will worry themselves into a fit, and they will do themselves positive harm in their freakouts, right? Mallard ducks in particular. And geese, on the other hand, I don't get that impression from them. They'll be just fine. And so they are, I would say that they, I do like to have them behind a fence.
Yeah.
Even though there is an element of that increases their border security. Like they do, they're a little more confident at their fence and they'll poke their heads through and bite your pants.
Yeah.
If they were free ranging, I don't think they would be so quick to bite, but then you would have to deal with them all the time.
Yeah.
They run up to you, they mob you constantly.
Well, with little girls running around too.
And that's the thing.
We couldn't do that. Yeah.
It's the littles. So they seek to, I don't know what it is. I'm still trying to work out my goose psychology. But
they're definitely more cerebral.
Yeah, they really are.
Other ducks.
The smaller you are, and 2 things encourage them to chase you, and that is flight, walking away from them. Don't do that. And being small.
Yeah.
So they'll come up to you, and if you take 1 step back, they'll hiss and bite you.
Yeah. Our 7-year-old boy, he's the youngest boy, and so he's constantly trying to prove himself. Poor guy.
His brothers, yeah.
And he got it in his head that he could stand up to the geese, and so he marched in, and he was fronting himself to them. And he let himself get a little nervous.
He took 1 step back.
All
that is, a half
you're
step.
right. And then they just
they smell the weakness and they pounce.
That's right. And they weren't actually going to hurt him.
No, but it's super intimidating.
It is.
Which is their game.
And
that's how they play.
And he is not quite that much taller than them.
No.
So.
Yeah, they're like right here.
Yeah.
And they're
he learned a lesson then.
So much of it is show. Like it's 90% show.
Right.
And they'll open their wings. They put their heads way up high, as high as they can, make themselves as tall as they can, and just be super loud. And they gang up. They do it in a gang. So, but all of that to say, if you just don't move or open your wingspan, You got to show them your wings.
Uh-huh.
They immediately back down.
Yeah.
And if you take a step forward, then they flee.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, you just got to learn their language a little bit. And I have noticed a difference in breeds.
Mm-hmm.
The Toulouse that we have are relatively calmer, as loud as they are, believe it or not, than smaller breeds.
Uh-huh.
I just harvested a bunch of pilgrim geese, which are like a medium breed, and to add on to it, they were home hatched by a goose, not by a hatchery and then shipped in the mail. And that does make them a little more antagonistic towards the people, or defensive. Mm-hmm. Whereas literally, if you get them in the mail, they will they imprint on you pretty reliably, I think. Ours did, and then they just want to hang out. So
they kind of elevate the homestead too.
They're very noble beasts.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. They feel like they are the magnanimous bird that,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you take good care of them and they're not like getting muddy and
yeah.
You know, like I took the kids to a friend of ours at their house, and they, for no other reason than to suit their fancy, they have a couple of swans.
Oh, yeah.
And beautiful animal. I mean, they have like a really manicured like creek bed, and so the swans just live there, and it's a beautiful addition to their property.
Yeah.
But Wallace saw them, and he was like, "Mom, the swans remind me of our geese, or they make me really appreciate our geese. It has the same, just generosity, the same kind of overwhelmedness to them."
They stand on ceremony a lot.
Okay.
I think that's it's weird, but they do all of these. Every move appears to us to be totally symbolic, like superfluous. They're not just, at least by appearance, just doing biological things. Like their carriage is so proud.
Yeah.
It's regal.
Yeah.
The way they move their necks and their heads, and the way that they literally sound the alarm.
Yeah.
In unison.
I think you can probably
happens.
hear them right now. I'm catching little.
Yeah.
You can hear them right now.
Yeah, it's like they're always standing on ceremony.
Yeah.
Always, which is just a weird, interesting thing. And they're always coming up to you as a human instead of fleeing, which I think is partially, or a significant part of why they appear so intimidating to us, because we're used to birds fleeing.
Yeah.
Geese flee not.
Yeah.
At all. But yeah, they're good. I have contained them with flexi net, like I said, that is not electrified at all. I've never even bothered with that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
I think they are big enough that they could ground it out or make ground and get shocked, but they can also, the one thing I would say is we lost 2 to getting their necks stuck in the fence.
Yeah.
When they were little. So they just threaded their necks in and couldn't get out, and we weren't home. So that is why I'm not doing polywire again.
Okay, yeah.
They are so intelligent that these ones now have mastered the art of sticking their necks through the fence and grazing and pulling them back out. That they don't do that anymore. Nonetheless, it's polywire and geese just don't do it. Hard fencing, I think, for them. Or none at all. They'll stay around. Where their food is and water, particularly larger breeds that are flightless. So, yeah, they're great. I am particularly attracted to them because I think of them as the pigs of the bird world. They are the source of fat amongst the feathered creatures of this earth. They put on a lot of fat.
Yeah.
And that's why I want them.
Yeah.
And it's such special fat.
It is. When you sink your teeth into a goose, meal, it also tastes different. It may be slightly acquired. It's not, I wouldn't call it like super hard to attain, but it's not like chicken or turkey or...
Yeah, it's a little more like venison or Muscovy duck, honestly.
Oh, okay.
It's red, it's darker.
But fattier at the same time than Muscovy duck.
Yes, way fattier.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
It's going to be fun for this holiday season to have goose.
The hunt is up.
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values? Or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing? or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do. Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, the Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, and can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
Okay, let's shift for our last topic.
Okay.
We had a member ask about pastrami.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if we talked about pastrami with our last run of beef episodes. So I'm just gonna. I don't think we did, because we were just talking about things that we did.
Yeah.
So we've gotten into a habit now of. Last fall we got half a beef, a full side of beef,
Hanging in the walk-in.
and we spent several podcast episodes kind of going through how we were tackling it, without freezing it.
Yeah.
That was sort of the big deal.
Yeah. Because we think of eating a thing as tackling a thing. It's a project to be
true.
undertaken.
Yeah.
It is work.
Well, yeah, that's
you have
right.
to work to eat stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
No, that's true.
it's a weird paradigm.
And I don't know, but we did cure some things, but it wasn't pastrami. It
Right.
was just, in fact, we still probably have a couple.
Yeah, it was just brined and lightly smoked.
Yeah. But anyway, so we had a member ask
I guess
about
is, but-
pastrami. I thought we'd talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
This gentleman, his name is Pablo. He's from near Mexico City.
It's a Meatsmith member.
Yeah, and he has access to some quality beef. And he wants to make pastrami, but the recipes that he's found call for salt number 2. He doesn't want to use it. He said he's going to use an 8% brine, and he wants to know if that's the right path and any suggestions. And you responded to him, but I thought we'd open that one up to mention here as well.
Yeah, pastrami is delicious. It's peppery smoked beef. But the thing, usually from the brisket, I think, and covered in black pepper.
Okay.
I think that's kind of quintessential to it. But the other thing, actually, that is quintessential that we take for granted, is the use of that salt number 2.
Oh.
Or historically, it was potassium nitrate, saltpeter. And the thing about that is today, any corned beef or pastrami that you purchase or acquire, even, like of varying qualities, it's all the dominant flavor in all of it is going to be that cure number 2. It's going to be the flavor contributed to it by nitrite. And I guess it would just be a timing thing if you're going to use nitrate instead of nitrite. Anyways, that is what gives corned beef and pastrami its quintessential tangy flavor. Such that if you were just to cure in that 8% brine, which he said, which is great, that's a nice mild brine, that would work fine, without nitrite and just salt, then it would still be delicious, but it would taste so different that you might not even recognize it as pastrami or corned beef. That really is the decisive flavor when you get to St. Patrick's Day with your corned beef and cabbage and boiled potatoes. What makes that taste the way it does and look the way it does, it's like radiant pink, is nitrite. So as long as you're open to changing your current understanding of what pastrami or corned beef should taste like, just don't use nitrate. That really does change it. And it can change it for the better. I mean, it's delicious. The tang is nice, though. I'm not going to say that I don't like the tang of corned beef or pastrami.
Sure.
That tangy flavor.
Is that just a product of modern industrial pastrami, or has pastrami always been tangy and or I don't know.
I could only guess about that and theorize about it. Corning is a very old trying to remember the etymology of that because it's such a weird word. It has nothing to do with corn.
Oh, right.
I think it has to do with like even in the Bible, which is a very ancient text, you will see frequently translated corn, which is very silly. But I think it actually means, corn means like little tiny speck of a thing. And if you surround beef in it, it's like surrounding it in salt. So corning is salting.
Corning has to do with any sort of cereal plant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things we're looking it up right now.
Okay.
But anyway.
To preserve, season, or cook.
Right.
Is dad corned his own beef. Yeah, anyway.
They don't have an etymology on there, though, do they?
Not really.
You like the history of the word. Anyway. Oh, Middle English. Cognate with Dutch koren. Granum. Yeah, so it's linked to the Latin for grain. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little tiny doodle, a little grain.
Yeah. A horn. Yeah.
So I think literally it might be like using grains of salt to preserve meat historically. But I would have to look into that because that is a distinct English usage of that word that has nothing to do with the New World cereal. So anyway, yeah. What was I saying? Corning.
I asked.
Brining.
I asked if it's always been tangy.
Oh, if it's always been tangy. So we do know that nitrite or saltpeter, saltpeter has been used for many centuries, like at least the 1200s. Because you can mine it from caves. There's veins of it in caves and some pretty rudimentary production methods of it, particularly when they started doing gunpowder, obviously.
Okay.
It's an essential ingredient. But even before gunpowder, it was used in curing. But not ubiquitously. And I think that it really depended on where you are and its availability. It wasn't until modern shipping permitted the mining of it from South America in South America. You can mine it in veins. There are big saltpeter mines in South American continent. And that's where like the small bacon factories in the first part of the 20th century were getting their saltpeter. And then we kind of started making it in labs, and that's where we get cure number 1 and cure number 2.
Yeah.
So you can read, beef preservation. So corning beef, I read an old recipe for corning beef that was actually, okay, we got to get this right. It is wild. No saltpeter involved. It's just salt. But you cube up the beef. Oh, come on. Yeah, you cube up. Oh, come on, brain. Access. Old, very old. Old. It's in Middle English. So sort of pre-Shakespearean English. Chaucerian English is this poetic cookbook describing the preservation of beef. And essentially you salt the heck out of it, and then you put it in water with, oh, come on. I've got it. It's one of the earliest recipes of corned beef that I've ever seen. So we're talking, what's Chaucer's 1200s, so, right, 1300s? That's what we're talking, really early. it's a very salty brine. That's what it is. You cube up the beef and you put it in a crock with a very salty brine. And I don't even think he gives the ratios. But then you put a piece of sod on top of the crock, of grass. And that's the lid.
Oh, wow.
And I think what it is, like, there's so much surface area in sod that actually will reduce the salt level a little bit.
Huh.
As you pull the sod off, because you're curing the grass. And curing is salt actually replacing the water in the blades of grass with salt. So as you pull the sod off, you are pulling salt out of the brine. A little bit at a time.
Oh, okay.
And no
Right.
small amount, because there's lots of surface area to a piece of turf.
Yes.
Now, he could have been talking about peat, because he uses a very weird word for the turf or the sod. So this is all estimating, but I actually did write a harvest journal on this at one point.
Oh, okay.
The earliest use of corned beef.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah.
That's in the membership.
It
There's
is
some
so
neat
interesting.
writing pieces in there too, archived.
Yeah, but it wasn't really until later, until the industrial shipping, that that you could get it. You could get saltpeter elsewhere, and then they refined the use of saltpeter to a high degree of excellence. Again, at the beginning of the 20th century, in the commercial scale. And it wasn't necessarily just to prevent botulism. It's like maybe not even at all for that. It was color. Color, if you read about it, that they were not talking about safety. They were, in the old text, the old recipes, they're talking about the color. And they were so into the purdy color that they were actually getting, I don't know how to say it, but cochineal, which is like little, yeah, there it is. They were getting, which is a crustaceous shell that you can get, you crush it and you dehydrate it or something. Well, it's probably already dry. You crush it into a powder, you get a very bright, radiant red color. And they would put that on Brandenheim hams, in south of England at one point. So just crazy stuff. So color was a big deal.
Yeah.
All that to say.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I think you start doing that, and then you get the prototypical flavor, because they were all about the meat ripening. They called it equalization, which back then I think they understood just a little differently than we do, and it meant the releasing of nitrite from nitrate. So each curer had to coax the saltpeter to produce the tangy flavor and the pink color. That was part of being a curer, because it doesn't automatically do it. The meat has to be hung after being salted with saltpeter and salt in a warm cooler. Warm cooler. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But that's like in the upper 40s.
Okay.
So not a refrigerator. And it has to ripen there. And there has to be bacteria present. It can't be sterilized meat.
Right.
Because those two things, that warmth and the bacteria, actually convert saltpeter into nitrite, into the pinky and the tangy. And so that was the whole goal, became achieving that subtly tangy nitrite flavor. And so they would even keep brines for a very long time. And the reason you did that is because in the brine there would be this store of bacteria from all the meat that's gone in and out of it, in sufficient quantities to convert the saltpeter you put in it originally to be perpetually nitrite. And so the brines were just these nitrite pickles that lent the meat its pink and tangy color. So that was all the beginning of the 20th century, as far as I can tell, in the English-speaking world. And I think that's where our current understanding of this radiant pink corned beef and pastrami came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is Liber Cure Cocorum.
I show people really quick.
This is an old harvest journal we did. Does it come through? Harvest journal on beef, on Liber Cure Cocorum.
So if you're on YouTube, you can see the title of this?
15th century. Okay, so this is the 1400s.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So the recipe is to salt beef within a night. So this is overnight corned beef, okay? You boil the salt in water bright. Make sure your water is bright and clean, okay? Melt it in brine, set down to cool. Put in your flesh fair and well. And in a night it shall be salted, freshly salted through. So may I thrive. And he's got this great way, this is what I was thinking of, how to remedy the oversaltification. Because he just recommended making a brine that would salt the beef in one night. So that's going to be crazy salty.
Right.
If your dish meats, dear, are too salty, your dish meats. How are your dish meats? Are they tasty? Are they bright?
That's cute.
Are they fair and well? If they are too salty, carve a green sod. Here it is.
Okay.
I know you shall. And cover your pot with the grass down. You know, your pot.
Got it.
You have a pot, right? You have a pot of perpetual brine in your larder wherein beef is salted.
Well, and the dirt's on top.
That's right.
Right?
And the dirt's on top.
Yeah.
So you cover your pot with the grass down. Then salt on the grass shall bark quite soon. So I like how he uses the word bark as a verb.
Uh-huh.
A bark of salt will form on the grass.
Wow.
With your hand, smite off, I say. So you wipe it off with your hand.
Uh-huh.
And the salt lay on anew you may. You can use that salt. So you wipe off the salt that has crystallized on the grass and capture it because you can use it. Because back in that day, salt was currency in many places.
That's right. You didn't want to just
highly
throw it
valuable.
away.
Highly valuable. Thus shall you gather it each bit and make it fresh unto mixture.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's the oldest recipe of corned beef I can think of. 14th century. Liber Curriculorum. On the slights of cure.
I've spent a lot of time on that document, and it's
fun.
Open source online.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to see the Old English or Middle English, maybe.
Yeah.
The recipes.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
And even this, what I just read, the spelling has been altered to modern spelling.
That's right.
And it is actually written in Old English, which is very readable. You can find them side by side. It's actually easier to understand Old English by sound than it is by text. So if you find yourself in the position to have to read Middle English, did I say old? Old English is illegible. You can't read that.
Yes.
I mean Middle English.
Yes.
Read it out loud. You will actually understand it.
Right.
Because it will sound. You will hear the nascent forms of the words we use today by the sound.
Yeah.
Not by the spelling. That'll just throw you all off. But read it out loud and you'll get it.
Yeah. So all that to say, pastrami.
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, curing things.
Yeah.
Curing beef, particularly. Yeah. Could you go back? I wanted to show people, actually, since we're here, since we're in membership. I've been wanting to do this. And it's so much easier to do than do a screenshot and add it. And if you scroll, hit back there. Sorry. This is like not very digitally. Look at our wires and everything.
Yeah.
But these are the collection of harvest journals
Yeah.
that we have accumulated over the last few years. And there's some on all manner of topics.
Yeah.
You have a whole series on butchering venison and nitrite, and even harvesting wood as an analogy for harvesting meats.
I sometimes get poetic. I try not to.
No, it's really good. And we haven't actually put any up here for a little while. We're a little behind, but there's some good stuff in here from the last few years. Yeah, it's kind of where you put more philosophically inclined stuff. But sometimes there's actually recipes in there or historical anecdotes. I'm trying to think of where else we want to go before we end the episode. It's so rare that we're able to get together.
I know.
It's become harder and harder.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of me and my changes in lifestyle.
Well,
and
the addition of Thomasina.
yes, I've got a baby and the 7 children. And all of a sudden I had no readers and now I have 4 readers. So that's really changed things. I think you were talking about when we talked about we did our homeschool episode a while back, and you talked about not really worrying too much if your children don't read at the age of 4.
Yeah, that's a classic homeschool bit of experience.
So I didn't.
Yeah.
And now my oldest is reading, and because he's reading, the 3 under him are all, they want to do the same thing.
Wallace is always the trailblazer. He has more influence on our family than I do. Like, that's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
He is just, he does everything first, and they all imitate him.
Yeah.
They really do. And reading is no different.
Yeah.
He starts reading, and then literally his 4 younger siblings start reading.
Yeah.
Like the same week.
Yeah.
I
know. And I asked for it. I was like, when are we going to have a churning homeschool? And now I totally do.
Yeah.
But it's taking every bit of my time, and I love it. I wouldn't trade it. But it also means I'm not really on the podcast anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, it's been a few months. We should really sit down. Whereas before I was like, much more calendaring it
well, once they can read, once they have the tool, then
I just want to keep feeding it to them and fueling that fire. But I wanted to mention that because of that, so the podcast, we're getting out maybe every few weeks. We'll have a new episode. But if you find that you're just hungry for content, because I get that. There's people that have mentioned recently, like, I've burned through all of your episodes in like 2 weeks, you know? Which we do the same thing when we get on a certain train of thought. But on the YouTube, if, in case you're an audio only listener to this, YouTube has some neat content that we're starting to pump out more that is not just the podcast, although... Well, we have a friend who helps us get some excerpts of the podcast out regularly. And so you can, for just little bite-sized snippets of topics that we bring up here.
Yeah.
And then also you just started releasing this year, really in June, because of the meat production going in crisis. More how-to videos on YouTube free content. So kind of pulling from maybe the early videos that we put on our membership. Yeah. The ones that have been up there for 2 or 3 years, you're starting to release on YouTube for free. So there's those too. I would subscribe to our YouTube page if you haven't already. Yeah. And make sure you're getting notified of these new things, because every week or two there's some big thing that you're releasing. Yeah. That's taken a long time to put together. And
we really have the artful harvesting of poultry.
Yeah.
Pretty much up on YouTube for anybody.
Right. Yeah. So, if you're not already, I would subscribe to us on YouTube, and then Instagram helps us remind you also about when things are released, as well as our newsletter. If you're not getting our newsletter, please subscribe to our newsletter, and you can do that on the homepage of our website,
farmsteadmeatsmith.com.
And we're getting better at being more consistent with those emails as well. So. I'm trying to think of any last things that we should bring up, but anything else new rolling around in your brain?
No, I was thinking a little bit about, I've had a couple funny experiences recently where, especially since our Meatsmith members do stuff.
Yeah.
They actually kill pigs and such. They become members, or they attend a class, and then they go home and they do it. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of posting on the Meatsmith table, which is really great for everybody. Am I doing this right? In the middle of a process, or in the middle of a scald and scrape, or looking at a particular cure, a piece of bacon that's hanging in the kitchen. Is this okay? Is this right? And my answer is always, yeah, you're all doing it perfectly. This is awesome. Uh-huh. But it is neat. And I find that they acquire a lot of all the information, for how to scald a pig, mm-hmm. or how to pluck waterfowl, which is a different thing than plucking a chicken. Mm-hmm. On account of their feathers being designed and quantified to repel water. So the scald is a totally different thing. Mm. But they have the information, the data on that. Mm-hmm. And then it's a matter of going and doing it. Mm-hmm. And frequently what they find in the doing is that it's still kind of hard. Mm.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as it was. But that is a frequent realization. Mm-hmm. And so I'll have some posts of a pig, that's just hoisted out of a scalder, and I see the picture. I'm like, oh, beautiful, nice job. And someone will say, something like, oh, this was really hard. I don't think we quite did it right. And yeah. I'm like looking really close, and it's a hairless pig.
Yeah.
And so I found myself a little bit, a couple times saying, you up and did it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's perfect. You can't ask for more. And I forget that it is still a little toilsome.
Yeah.
But the difference is that it's productive toil. There's no useless work, which I have a very deep soulish distaste for. I can't handle it. It is still tedious, and it still takes some elbow grease to scrape that hog and then to shave it. It is inherently difficult, even when you ace everything. But it is simple, and it works.
Yeah.
So it's the thing that, that is a desolation devoutly to be avoided, is useless work.
Yes.
So ineffectual.
Yeah.
That, scalding, scraping a pig, and it's not coming off.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
That's depressing.
But if it's coming off and it's still a little hard, that means you did it right. Mm-hmm. That there might be some subtleties of paying even closer attention to the temperature, of the scald, mm-hmm. even closer attention to the timing. But in the end, it is toil, it's work.
Yes.
And I forget that because I have built up the habit of doing it. And the more, that's the other thing. It's the kind of thing that the more you do it, the easier it gets. It is, pig scalding and scraping is actually a virtue.
That's right. That's the definition of virtue.
Yeah.
It gets easier, but after it's a habit.
And I would say it gets easier not necessarily on the physics of hair retention or water scalding changes.
The laws of the universe don't change.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
What changes is you.
Yeah.
You get better at picking the right battles, mm-hmm. and that makes it easier on you. You get better at how you use your energy. That's what happens. Yeah. And that is where the ease comes in.
Yeah.
But every hair still must come off.
Yeah. Or just even not complaining, my kids sometimes they'll be learning how to do some new task. Mm-hmm. Like Johnny's trying to learn how to multiply multiple digits, and he's just like, you're making it so much harder by, fighting against it.
Yeah.
Just look at the problem and mm-hmm. apply yourself,
Yeah.
It's so funny, the physical antics he'll put himself through. And I'm like, this is not like, and so I don't give him more than just one problem a day because I know it's going to be useless. But then at times I try to point out to him, you did that problem in like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Because you didn't waste energy complaining about it. I don't know. I just see that.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people are posting about is, should I waste energy on worrying about this?
Yes.
I'm scraping, I still some hair. It's a little harder than I thought. Should I waste energy on thinking, did I do this right? Did I do it wrong?
Yeah.
What do I need to fix? Do I need to fix anything? And it's nice when, other members will just reply like, no, that's it. You got it.
Yeah.
So now you can just totally not fight that battle anymore and just do the work at hand.
Yeah.
Which is technically easier than worrying about it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what this is. It's just dispelling. And that comes from just experience.
Yeah.
The more you do it.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more you do it.
Yeah.
It works.
It's kind of like, it's just you're stumbling into the paradox of, because I find you say the word effortless a lot.
I know.
It applies to a lot of things, but that can be a tricky word.
It is.
And I guess we should say what you mean is it's effortless as long as you're putting in a lot of effort.
I know. I have to apologize to everyone that's ever listened to me ever that I use hyperbole to make points. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All Meatsmith members. I do. And it's not dishonest. Like, I really do feel to make this make sense. I've got to express it as the opposite side of the dichotomy of what is currently done or known. And then people can latch on to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I do think, though, that fresh meat is effortlessly delicious. Just saying. So.
Well, yes,
as opposed to previously frozen meat or tormented meat from
that's true.
an industrial setting.
Yeah.
That is effortless.
You're right.
I mean, you do have to pick up your hand and put salt on it and turn the dial of the oven, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's got to be some analogies in there, but well, I was also going to say, speaking of the membership, right now, this exact season, out of all 4 seasons, this is the best time to be on there because people are giving it their first, second, third go at pigs, and they're like, I think I did it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And then they post all their pictures and all of the community that's happening around the pig killing, and it's a very exciting time.
This is harvest season. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Especially. Yeah. I'm not on Facebook, but that is the page.
It's really good
to be on. Yeah.
Yeah, the closed group is really awesome. It's very active every day. Yeah.
Cool. I don't want to quite end because we're here.
I know.
It's
when will
so
we
much
be here again?
Get up to. I mean, it took like 45 minutes to set this up, and then it'll take a half hour to tear down, and Anyway, it's just I'm always. I think because my life has changed so much, the essentials have been distilled down to. I can't distill it anymore. It's a very unctuous liquor right now, and so I know the value of time, but it's nice to be back in the chair with you.
Yeah.
So
I like it too. Well, let's just go ahead and do it again.
Okay, we'll try. I'll bug my mom. Thank you so much for joining us, Meatsmiths. It's always a pleasure to know that you're listening and enjoying the fruits of our labor and the fruits of your own labor using this education. So, keep in touch. Join the membership. Give us your questions, and we'll tackle. I'm kind of thinking I'd really like to make some of these podcast episodes just grab bag. I mean, we've covered a lot of like the big, monstrous topics.
Yeah.
Like sausage. We've given you a lot of kind of groundwork, foundational work, but maybe we can do some more teasing of the particulars with your questions. So anyway, that's another reason to join. But Thanks again, and have a great rest of your October and November, heading into the holiday season. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can receive updates on all our brand new content as it's released by signing up for our email newsletter. Free download of Brandon's thoughts on meat cookery included. Go to farmsteadmeatsmith.com and sign up on the homepage. Thanks again for listening, and keep in touch.